Welcome to Mindful Drawing. I'm Robert, and I'll be your guide in this meditation practice that enters a space of mindfulness through the act of drawing. This week we'll inhabit a space of kind of a hovering lightness, a layered space between us and the page in front of us, between us and the instrument of making a mark, pen or pencil, whatever you like to work with. That hovering coming in the space of our breath layered between cycles of inhalation and exhalation, with those moments of quiet pause at the top and the bottom of the cycle. We'll inhabit that space, let our eyes close and remove from the visual context for a little while. Let something emerge where we let go of control or figuration, but we'll still have our tool and our interface there. And then we'll open up, see what we have, and give it a little bit of shape, a little bit of layering, a little bit of that hovering to the drawing, see where it takes us. And come back and close out with a nice cycle of the breath, a nice relaxing into the release of your creative energies, and play on the paper. So go ahead and gather your supplies, establish your space, and let's draw together. I don't know if we need a warm up for this one. I think we can just dive in. We're going to let our eyes be closed and just use our hand and the space in front of us to get started. And then we'll open up and see what we can draw from that. So pen, pencil, whichever suits you, or anything else. If you like, you can kind of play around with which hand you use for the exercise. I think I'll open up a little bit more, just start with my offhand. So we're not going to be drawing anything very accurate at the beginning, so it won't matter too much, but it might make the noticing a little bit stronger with a little difference to our everyday. So we'll start by setting up a field and just noticing how we interact in that space between us and the paper, bringing the hand up in the air a little bit, and on the first few, just at whatever pace feels right to you, bringing it down a little bit slow, not rushing to the page, and noticing when we make contact, and then picking any direction after you've made a little bit of a mark there with letting the instrument sit, and just let that mark give a little direction. So you might have a little flick. It can be kind of light to begin with, but we can build into that. So that'll be a series that we do with our breath, breathing in while we lift the pen or pencil up into the air, holding it for a moment at the top of that inhalation cycle, and then in the exhalation, letting it come down. Until we notice it make contact there on the page. And you can maybe move it around a little bit if you want a little more of a mark, or leaving a little directional kind of flick or tick to it. And that direction can play in any orientation as we develop a series of these. Really breathing in as we raise the hand, noticing the difference in position from down to up, and exhaling it down, trying to gauge a little bit when that might make some impact. Make a little mark, and as the breath runs out, leave a direction on the page. Inhale up, hold for a second, exhale down. Contact, let that vacuum hold for a moment, and then leave a little mark. Anytime you need to resituate, readjust, just kind of feel out that connection between yourself and the space there. Feel free, and then inhale up. Hover for a moment and ride the exhalation down. Contact, let the vacuum form, and leave a mark. You can begin to find your own rhythm for that inhalation, the hold, the pause, the noticing without the eyes, the space, and the exhalation to find the surface. Get a little noticing of the pressure, the location of the hand and the pen or pencil. A little flick to give some direction to the mark. Do a few of these quietly, really opening up with the eyes closed to the sensation of the hand moving through space, the connection between the cycles of motion and the cycle of the body's breath. Maybe find your interface to where you position the speed and the way you make the mark at the end. A few of those really establishing the kind of rhythm and cadence. You can continue on with it. Perhaps deepening a little bit of the attention to any specific part that draws your attention, that interests you. Perhaps that's the making of the mark. Perhaps it's the rise, the little float above the orientation. Or that anticipation of connection, impact at the bottom of the exhalation. Giving yourself that little space, again, the eyes closed or focused off somewhere else, to break down the parts of the motion, the interaction, to notice each phase. Raising up, hovering, releasing down, engaging a little motion, and leaving behind a little mark of direction. You can take a few more, whatever pace you want. We'll begin to transition from this. A nice, soft base established, leaving behind some trace on the page. See in a moment what that trace is and how we can engage with it. When you're ready, take the final breathing cycle. Do it in quiet so you can really listen to each part. And then open your eyes up, let them see onto the page the scattering of things, little moments of impact and flirting often in different directions. And what we'll do is bring some shape to each moment, roughly a square-like or rectangle-like shape. You can continue with the offhand or switch to your normal hand, depending on if you want some accuracy or not. Now we'll encompass each dot with a bit of a square rectangle that aligns itself to the direction roughly that little flick takes off in. The size can be up to you, the one you engage with, or the order. Follow the eyes, things that stand out, draw you in. We'll draw the first one together, finding it and wrapping it roughly at the center, roughly parallel in some way to the movement or direction, the size, anything you want, the orientation, position of the thing can be square, rectangular, something that has a directionality to it. And then we'll move through the field, finding ones that stand out first, and then working through each. And as we'll have some that probably overlap or intersect. Consider how that happens, whether they just directly overlap each other, intersecting on the page, or maybe one layers underneath the sequence, becoming part of the depth of the drawing. But for each one, we'll take our time with that making of the shape, finding the location. You can always read it a little bit more, find the center, notice it, then choose a distance, and start to map around it. I think I'll let mine sneak behind each other, a little bit of a physical dimension to the page. And as you draw each one, we can return to that inhalation and exhalation cycle, finding your rhythm for it, one that draws you in, noticing its place, finding a directionality and a distance, and then breathing through the mark, perhaps an exhale to start, an inhalation at moments of change in direction, a new exhalation as we work around that box, capturing its little moment of interaction underneath. And as some will be caught inside or trapped around, we can imagine they're layering their own breath rectangle around the outside. Again, just overlap, it's all fine, whichever way you want to work with it, but each center a potential spawning point of this encompassing rectangle of various sizes. Breathing it out onto the page. Every once in a while, letting the eyes wander over the surface, find one that has an interesting feature or moment, maybe a neat squiggle or a new direction, and bring the square around it with that inhalation to start and an exhalation to track along its boundary. Each point expanding out with some influence to a shape. Roughly square, roughly aligned. Finding a cadence that allows you to be present and engaged with the forming of that shape, noticing its corners, maintaining roughly the proximity of evenness around it. The exact center, but it's our guiding place, aligning roughly to the direction hinted by the act below. Taking that little time in the space between cycles of engagement to notice where you are and how you're interacting with the page. Being present enough to consciously choose how you form the shape when it interacts with others. Any way is fine. We're looking to be in awareness of the way we choose. As you work through the field, you might start to see little patterns emerge, layering or orientations of your interaction with the page, perhaps where the hand was, how you moved with the consistency or inconsistency, depending on the hand you're using, and the way you moved it around the paper. At some point, we'll begin to run out of centers to work with, and anytime you could add some more, eyes open or closed, or start to look for something around and between them, perhaps bringing a secondary layer of highlight to the edge, the ones above a little bit heavier, a little bit stronger profile to stand out on top, ones in the back fading out. Perhaps that center point has some physical presence, a small puncture or hole in the surface. Something reflecting it, passing through its curve, thread continuing along, sneaking out behind, looking into what's made there, a series of points, little marks or arcs of action encompassing boundaries, things of shape, with physical qualities, things of geometry that can become anything that's there worked with. With the strong breath established through the exercise, the body relax a bit into the motion of the pen or the pencil. Opening up to suggestions that the page might make, anything you find. Bring in some shading, some tone, any opportunity you see here, the collection of elements. I like the little strings moving through the space, these just little frames along the path. As you draw for a few minutes, whichever layers you're bringing to it, or returning to the simple breath exercises, notice the engagement of the tool. How does the pen or pencil touch the paper? You feel the texture. Depending on what you're using, it might be more or less prominent. Noticing of that. Noticing of the various orientations, a lot of change in direction, putting the hand, the wrists, the fingers into new positions as they map and negotiate. You think back, remembering the beginning, the experience of floating up on the breath, the lightness of a little bit of hovering, slow descent and release of the breath, engagement and then disengagement from the page. And you find any of the qualities there, the hover, suspension, the slow action of lightness. Just use the pen or the pencil or some combination from both to explore the landscape, to bring the elements together, to think through the possible narrative or idea there. Bits of action frozen onto the page. No intention or beginning to them. Just an unfolding. A little playground for us to explore for a few minutes. Slowly bring something out of our mind. Pay attention to our interaction with the tool, with the media. With the geometry of shapes on a page. Since the world goes on forever, farther back into the paper, all the way out beyond what we see now, expanding past the edges. This is just a glimpse, a framing of what could be happening here. You can work to bring detail to that world. Get away, perhaps light or distance, operate, little shading I'm working here, or the heaviness of the profiles, the layering, the intersection. We can step back and imagine it growing and expanding. The unfinishedness taking a moment. And as we started the exercise, closing out, returning to that softness of a space without the eyes, a space, just the body and its engagement with the page. If you have something you're drawing and enjoying, feel free to stick with it. Or you can let it come to a rest and close with a return to the series of breath, inhaling to elevate and hover, holding for a moment, then riding the exhalation down to the paper. Making a little mark in the vacuum and letting it flow out. Repeating the cycle to replenish the oxygen of the body and to listen closely to the space in front of you. As you float there in the space of the breath, and to expand that awareness out back to some of the world around us. Going in for a little while to find that quietness or softness, and then letting the mind reach back out. Notice what the other hand may be doing, resting on the table, moving around, up or down. Notice how your clothes move as you raise the arm and go down slowly. Notice how your body twists, stretches, realigns as you extend the point with a little bit of directional flick. Notice how your feet are either resting on the floor, supporting you, or hanging, hooked back on the chair, whichever way they may be. Notice your hair, maybe light wind in the atmosphere. Notice any sounds in the world around you. The breath moving through the body. Cars, birds, or that muffled sound of snow if you're anywhere that got some over the weekend. And as you're ready, bring your final marks and final breaths to your present moment, a few deep ones, really noticing the whole movement of the inhalation and the relax of the exhalation. And if your eyes are closed, letting them drift back open. See the next layer to the drawing, the moments hidden in the field, potentials for moving forward and doing more layers, more interactions, growing that world narrative out from some weird little shapes, some ribbons, some lines, some squares, and whatever else emerged there. Take a moment to come back and take in your space around you. Maybe stretch the hands. Give them a little bit of a movement to wake up on both sides and prepare for the next part of your day. Even after doing so many of these exercises, I'm sometimes reminded in the middle of it how much impact just taking a few moments to calm the mind and be present can have. Sometimes ideas float in, or just that emptiness. Not needing to have any ideas, not needing to think about anything, just breathe and let movement unfold. Let what might come on the page unfold. And hopefully in that cycle of the breath you find a little bit of that soft hovering, the quietness internally that then can let you open up the senses to all parts of your surroundings, your environment, your body, your place. And then maybe we get a little bit of fun, a little bit of creative expression on the page, but the act of the drawing is a practice of the mindfulness and a release from control into openness. If you enjoyed the exercise, let me know in the comments what you found. Leave a thumbs up if you liked it, and come back every week for more episodes of Mindful Drawing. This is Brooks is Fun, signing off, and draw well.